Imagine this: a dark corridor, cracked walls, a flickering light on its last breath, and a group of dangerous men blocking the way. In any Korean film, this situation ends only one way: violence. But BTS didn't choose that. The elevator doors open, 7 men step out, and instead of raising weapons, they start dancing. In the first 12 hours after the video dropped, the world had already given its answer: 8.5 million views, trending #1 in nearly every country with an internet connection. But there's something inside this 2.0 MV that almost everyone missed. It's not just about the reference to the legendary film Old Boy. It's not just about the costumes, the choreography, or the insane cinematography. There's one detail about Jimin in this video that, if you know what it means, will change the way you see BTS's entire new era. And we're breaking all of it down today, every last piece. Hello everyone, welcome back to this channel. If you're the type who can't be satisfied just watching an MV once and scrolling on, who wants to know what's hidden behind every frame, every movement, every artistic decision, then you're exactly where you need to be. Here, we don't just react, we analyze, we dissect from every angle that might have been missed. If this is your first time here, subscribe first, because this kind of content will keep coming, especially now that the Arirang era has just begun and still has so much left to unpack. Alright, let's get into it. Before we dive into the MV itself, we need to step back and place this moment in the right context. On March 20th, 2026, BTS released their 5th album, Arirang, their first comeback as a complete group after nearly 4 years of hiatus. The album immediately exploded, debuting at #1 on the Billboard 200, with the single Swim going straight to #1 on the Hot 100, and 13 out of 14 songs entering the US charts simultaneously, a record no K-pop album has ever achieved. But after all that chaos, BTS wasn't done. On April 1st, a teaser MV for the 5th track on the album, a song called 2.0, dropped at midnight KST, and it made everyone stop in their tracks. Not because it was full of spoilers, quite the opposite. The teaser was deeply mysterious. A dark corridor, 6 silhouettes in suits inside an elevator, RM holding a newspaper, then lowering it to reveal a 1970s-inspired hairstyle and aviator glasses, and no confirmed release date. The internet immediately panicked. That day happened to be April 1st, April Fool's Day, and Jimin and V shared the teaser on their Instagram stories with suspiciously casual reactions. V wrote "ha ha ha ha," the Korean equivalent of "ha ha ha," and Jimin simply wrote "oh really, ha ha." Fans couldn't sleep that night. Was this an April Fool's prank? Was the MV actually coming out, or was something else being prepared? The answer came exactly on April 2nd, 2026 at midnight KST. 2.0 officially dropped, and what ARMY saw, even before they'd finished watching it, was already enough to prove that this was not just another music video. Let's start from the beginning, because every scene in this MV was chosen with extreme precision. The video opens with an atmosphere that immediately takes your breath away. A narrow, dim, grimy corridor, a group of dangerous men gathered in front of an elevator, speaking in threatening tones. The elevator doors open, and there, standing 7 men in sharp suits and leather jackets, carrying an aura that can't be categorized as simply good or bad. RM at the front, with his retro 70s hair and aviator glasses, holding a newspaper. The other 6 members behind him, including Jimin, who even before moving already looks like someone who doesn't need to say much to make people step back. They step out of the elevator, and then, instead of raising fists or weapons, they start dancing. This is a direct tribute to the corridor scene from Old Boy, one of the most iconic scenes in the history of Korean cinema. In Park Chan-wook's 2003 film, protagonist Oh Dae-soo walks alone through a corridor full of enemies, fighting with a hammer in a way that's raw, exhausted, but unstoppable. That scene wasn't made to look cool, which is precisely why it became so cool. BTS took that same energy, but replaced the weapon. In the 2.0 MV, that corridor isn't filled with physical violence, but with choreography that is aggressive, sharp, and so full of intensity that it's visually no less devastating than the original scene. Every BTS movement is a strike, every musical hit lands like a blow, and the enemies in the corridor have no choice but to fall back, not because of fear of being attacked, but because they've been defeated by something far more powerful than violence. The visual narrative continues deeper into the building, darker, grimier, from corridor to industrial hallway, from hallway to an old bathroom full of dirty mirrors, and this is where the moment everyone loves most takes place. BTS dances inside those bathroom mirrors, performing the chorus of 2.0 beneath a peeling ceiling, cracked tiles, and lighting that feels like a neon bulb about to die. The contrast between their perfect appearance and the decaying environment is devastatingly effective. And then, in the most 2.0 moment of the entire video, they return to the elevator. The doors close, the doors open again, and they step out in completely different clothes, modern, clean, sharp, down into a glimmering skyscraper. The lyric at that moment is, "We on that brand new." Done. And the world immediately caught fire. In the first 12 hours after release, the 2.0 MV had already surpassed 8.5 million views on YouTube, making it the second strongest YouTube debut in the Arirang era after Swim. But what's more interesting isn't the view count. What's more interesting is where that traffic came from. Beyond the loyal ARMY base, this MV attracted attention from communities that don't usually pay much attention to K-pop, Korean film enthusiasts. Reddit forums that typically discuss Park Chan-wook, Bong Joon-ho, and Korean cinema suddenly filled up with discussions about a BTS MV. Threads like, "BTS just made the most respectful homage to Old Boy I've ever seen in music," and "the dance as a weapon concept is actually genius," appeared from users who openly admitted they weren't K-pop fans. Meanwhile, in the Korean entertainment community, the KOO, a platform known for being highly critical and not easily impressed, was flooded with comments saying the same thing over and over. "Jimin looks frickin' cool here. Jimin was crazy here. He was so good. Everyone's dancing upgraded here." These weren't comments from biased ARMY. These were comments from general Korean netizens watching the MV objectively, and nearly all of them mentioned the same name. Now, I want you to notice something that almost every other channel hasn't touched. Everyone is talking about the Old Boy reference. Everyone is praising the concept as a whole. But there's something specific about the way Jimin moves in this MV that carries its own story. Jimin isn't copying the choreography. Jimin is reinterpreting it. If you look closely, there's a striking difference between how Jimin moves in this MV compared to every previous BTS performance. In earlier eras, even in eras as mature as Map of the Soul 7, Jimin's dance lines always had a quality that was fluid, elegant, sometimes almost ethereal. In 2.0, that's completely gone. What replaces it is something darker, more controlled, more dangerous. Every Jimin movement in that corridor feels like it's drawn from a different repertoire, not from a dancer who wants to look beautiful, but from someone moving with a very specific purpose. There's tension in every angle of the elbow, premeditation in every step, and at the same time, there's a controlled casualness, like someone who knows exactly how dangerous they are and doesn't feel the need to prove it to anyone. That's why the most common comment is some version of Jimin isn't performing, Jimin is becoming the character. And there's one more detail that's discussed even less. During the transformation scene inside the elevator, where all the members change outfits before the doors open again, there's an expression on Jimin's face that is very brief, very small, but deeply meaningful. A thin smile, almost invisible, like someone who has just proven something, not to the world, but to himself.
If you don't know Jimin's journey from the beginning until now, you might let that moment pass right by. But if you do, you'll watch it over and over. But wait, because there's a layer here that's rarely discussed, and it's actually the most important one. Why 2.0? Why not Hooligan or another track chosen as the second MV? Look at where this song sits inside the album. 2.0 is the fifth track of Arirang, in an album that is musically structured like a journey, from Korean roots through battles of identity to the most mature and liberated version of BTS. The fifth track sits exactly in the middle. This is not a coincidence. Big Hit Music itself described 2.0 as a song about BTS right now, having entered a new phase following the change and growth of their past. A song about BTS today who have already passed through change and growth from their former selves. Think about what that means in the context of the visuals of the MV. That dark corridor isn't just a film setting. It's a representation of everything BTS has already been through. The hiatus, military service, the uncertainty of whether the fandom would still be there when they returned, the pressure of not disappointing millions of people who had been waiting for years. It is a corridor full of things that wanted to stop them. And they walked through it, not with violence, but with an art form they had perfected over more than a decade. And what's even more striking is this. The choice of the Old Boy reference was not arbitrary. Director Park Chan-wook is one of the most respected filmmakers in the history of Korean cinema. Old Boy itself is a symbol of something deeply Korean: courage, uniqueness, a willingness not to play it safe in pursuit of something that truly means something. By drawing from that reference, BTS was making a very clear statement to the world. We are proud of where we come from, we are proud of our culture, and we will never apologize for that. And here's the part that almost no media outlet has discussed. Jimin, who appears as one of the most visually powerful presences in this MV, is the dancer who, earlier in BTS's career, was known for the soft, emotional quality of his artistry. He is not typically the one associated with aggressive or noir. The choice to present Jimin this way is not accidental. It is a deeply intentional artistic decision, revealing that post-military Jimin is someone who has found a new dimension within himself and is not afraid to show it.
If you follow Jimin from the beginning, there's a long journey you can see in every visual era he's been part of. In BTS's earliest eras, Jimin was known for the beauty of his flowing choreography. Every movement felt like water. No hard angles, no excessive tension. Beautiful, but also feeling like someone still finding their place in the world. Then came BTS's middle eras, Love Yourself, Map of the Soul, where Jimin began adding layers of depth. Still beautiful, but with something heavier behind it, a more complex story. And now, in the 2.0 MV and across the entire Arirang era, there's something different again. Not just deeper, not just more mature, but there's an ownership of himself that was never fully present before. Every aggressive movement in the 2.0 MV feels consciously chosen, not as a character being played, but as a version of himself that had been held back all this time. As though military service, with all its silence and solitude, gave Jimin time to find parts of himself he'd never had the chance to explore. In a previous interview, Jimin once said that during military service, he learned to sit with himself without immediately turning every feeling into a performance. He learned stillness. He learned that true strength doesn't always need to be visible. And then he walked out of that elevator in a dark corridor inspired by one of Korea's greatest films and proved that stillness and danger can exist in the same place, in one body, in one movement, in one thin smile that is almost impossible to see. I want you to imagine something. The year 2003, Old Boy releases in Korea. No one knows that film will become one of the most influential works in the history of world cinema. No one knows that corridor scene will be quoted, referenced, and studied by major filmmakers for 2 decades to come. Park Chan-wook made that film because he believed in its story, because he believed that Korean art had value and power that didn't need to be compared to Hollywood to be recognized.
23 years later, 2026, 7 Korean men stand in a corridor inspired by that film, and instead of fighting with a hammer, they fight with a dance form they've perfected over more than a decade. And in 12 hours, 8.5 million people from around the world witnessed that. Think about what that means, not just for BTS, not just for ARMY, but for the entire Korean culture. For everyone who has ever asked whether Korean music could stand alongside Western music, whether Korean film could be respected globally, whether Korean identity could be something celebrated rather than hidden. The answer is in that MV, in every one of Jimin's aggressive, controlled movements, in every step that involves the whole body and soul, in the thin smile that appears for just a moment before the elevator doors close. That is not just choreography, that is a statement about who they are, where they come from, and where they're going. And that statement on the night of April 2, 2026 was heard by 8.5 million people at once, and it will only keep growing. So after everything we've talked about today, there's one question I want to throw your way. Which scene in the 2.0 MV is the most powerful to you visually, and why? Is it the opening moment in the corridor where they step out of the elevator like 7 people who have decided tonight is not a good night for anyone who wants to stand in their way? Is it the bathroom scene with all the dirty mirrors and the peeling ceiling? Or is it the transformation moment inside the elevator, when the doors close and when they open again, the same 7 people have become a completely new version of themselves? Write it in the comments, because every time I open a discussion about BTS's visuals, the answers are always more varied and more fascinating than I expect. And one more thing I want to add before we close. If there's someone around you who still asks what makes BTS different from other groups, send them this 2.0 MV. No long explanation needed, no controversy or debate required. Just watch the first 3 minutes. The answer is right there. If this video gave you a new perspective, hit like. It helps content like this reach more people who also need a deeper kind of analysis. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect time, because the Arirang era has only just begun, and there is so much more we'll be breaking down together. See you in the next video. Take care of yourselves. And if you watch the 2.0 MV again tonight, look for Jimin's thin smile inside that elevator. I promise you'll never be able to miss it again.